Hey, Shawn, thanks for joining us here today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. So, why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself,
Okay.
who you are, where you're from?
Shawn Perman. Grew up in a small town in the middle of nowhere in Indiana. I left when I was 19 for the Army. My whole family pretty much grew up around farming. Indiana's big on agriculture, soybean, cornfields. There wasn't much there for me, I felt. I graduated high school because I played sports. Not really because I was super, super smart. I was not never had any intentions on going to college.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I kind of knew I'd say early on that the military was something that I definitely wanted to do. I wanted to feel like I had a purpose. And the military, huge on that. It really, really sat home with me. So I left when I was 19. I joined the Army as an infantryman, 11 Bravo. I left October of 2020 or 2012. And then I ended up doing 9 years. Honestly, I probably would have done the entire 20, but I had met my wife on my last my last enlistment. So I went to Fort Benning, Georgia for basic training. After that, ended up at Fort Bliss, Texas with the 1st Armored Division. Had a lot of fun there. I actually it's funny because my entire career I lived as if I was getting out after every time. I was like, oh, I'm getting out. And it came up to that time and I was like, man, it's really too easy. This is way too easy to get out. And so it's actually harder to get out than it is to stay in. And so for me, I was really, really on the edge at my first duty station. It wasn't a whole lot of fun. We were a testing brigade, so we tested new equipment for the Army. Didn't get to really deploy, and that was kind of what I really wanted to do. And so I remember my platoon sergeant pulled me in the office. He's like, hey, just go talk to retention. Just go see your options. He's like, I'm not telling you to go either way. And I come back and he's like, so what's open? And I was like, oh, Hawaii, Alaska, Germany. He was like, are you thinking of anything? I was like, man, Hawaii would be pretty cool. And he just came back from being stationed in Hawaii. And he was like, Perman, you can't judge this place off the Army. It's not the real Army. He goes, go to another unit, give it one more chance. He goes, just give it one more 3 years. If you don't like it, get out, man. What's 6 years? You'll still be, by that time, you'll be 26 years old. He was like, so, and I thought about it. I was like, yeah, you know what? He's right. So re-enlisted. Hawaii was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Yeah. There was no way some poor farm boy is ever going to go to Hawaii, So that was an awesome opportunity. So I got out there. I was out there with the 25th Infantry Division out of Schofield Barracks. I won 121 gimlets. Yeah, if I can remember correctly. Yeah, 121 gimlets. Or Brother Boar. That was a blast. Hawaii was definitely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. No, I did not learn to surf out there because, again, where I'm from, we don't have the ocean, and I am deathly afraid of sharks. So that is not my thing. So loved it in Hawaii. After Hawaii, I had made, so my last year out there was about a year and a half. I ended up making sergeant. Once I made sergeant, I ended up coming out on orders for recruiting duty. Went back home to Indiana for recruiting duty. I was out there for about a year and a half, 2 years when I had met my wife. And then, recruiting really wasn't even that bad. Everybody gives it a bad rep. But it wasn't too bad.
I wasn't a fan of my recruiter. So.
And so that's a funny thing is there's two people that you will always remember from your military career. It is either going to be your recruiter or not. It will always be. You'll remember your recruiter. I, to this day, still remember my recruiter, Sergeant Burnett. And then your drill sergeants. Those are the major two. They played a huge impact in everything. So I always was pretty honest with guys. There was, for me, especially the time frame that I was in as a recruiter from 2018 to 2021, anything that I'm telling you, you're gonna Google. So it's not like I could hide anything. Kids would come in and I'd be like, man, what do you want to do? And they'd be like, oh, I want to go infantry. Oh, that's cool. Do you like sleeping in the hole? Do you like sleeping in an inch of rain or a foot of rain? Because you will. You're going to be cold. You're going to be miserable. I was like, but you're going to get to kick down doors and shoot guns. So then you'll show them a video of the stuff that I got to do, and they're like, oh, dude, that's awesome. And I'm like, hey, but remember, there's going to be times you're going to be hating your life. You're going to be like, dude, my recruiter sucked. and you're going to look back at that and you're going to be like, man, I wish this guy would have told me this. And that's why I'm telling you now. Because I was like, my recruiter didn't tell me. I was like, but I want to change it for the world, So when it came for me, my last year in recruiting, I was kind of jumping around whether I wanted to stay in or get out. If I wouldn't have met my wife, I 100% would have stayed in. I absolutely loved it. It was, again, like I said at the beginning, it was too easy to stay in. It was awesome. My career was going well. When I talked to her a little bit about it, and she was fully supportive if I wanted to stay in or not. And a big deciding factor was like, hey, if I do another 3 years, I'll be at 12. I was like, there's no sense in getting out after that. I'm going to go in dev. So I was like, but
10-year mark.
Yeah, 100%. And so for us, I was just like, you have 11 years is a lot of time. Like, if we're going to start a family and stuff like that, the stuff that I want to do in the Army is just not really fit for a family. And so for me, I was just like, let's go ahead and pull the trigger on getting out. So then it was like exploring my options. And she wanted to move down here it worked out with her job and stuff like that. And I told her, hey, it doesn't really bother me. I'm so used to being away from home anyways, So wherever you want to go, follow you wherever. And so we landed here in Florida. And when we decided on Florida, I started calling around, looking at different jobs. And that's kind of what led me to the fire department. I was really looking at like either police. I tried federal first, FBI, DEA, but that would have still kept me moving around. And so when I was talking to recruiters, I was like, that's the biggest reason why I'm getting out of the Army. Why would I go right back into that? So I called a bunch of different fire departments down here, and I'm like kind of outweighing my options. Hey man, I'm Shawn Perman. I'm moving down there, going to put myself through the fire academy. What are the chances of me getting hired on? I did 9 years in the Army, and they're like, oh man, you're not going to have any issue. Which is wild to me, because where I'm from, it's a lot of it's all volunteer. And there's not really any volunteer fire departments here in Florida. I think there's one or two left here in the whole state of Florida.
Really?
Most are professional paid firefighters. So that kind of led me down that path, and here I am now, work for Palm Harbor Fire Rescue, by far the best department. No, don't tell anybody else. So.
You already did.
That's fine. So I mean, but I love it. It's, I get to help the community. It's a little bit different outside, than the Army. You definitely get to see, especially I live in Palm Harbor, so living and working in the community, you get to help people that you might potentially see every day. And that kind of sits a little bit, near and dear to me, mainly because that could be somebody's grandma,
Right.
and I know that I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that she gets the best treatment possible, just like I would expect anybody to treat my mother or my grandmother like that.
True
So
story.
that's a big thing for me. But yeah, I mean, I love the job. It's a lot of fun. I get to do a lot of really cool stuff again. So I've been blessed, man. I've been blessed to be able to I've been afforded the opportunity to live and work in some of the best jobs that I could say anybody could really have, I might be a little biased, but
You're fine.
it is. It's awesome, Every kid at some point in their life looked at a fire truck flying by and was
Yes,
like,
indeed.
that would be so cool to drive.
True. Yes,
And
indeed.
so that's it's an awesome opportunity.
Sweet.
I think you asked me a little bit about something that hits home to me, veteran suicide and PTSD. So being in the fire department too, that's a big deal with not even just the fire department, first responders in general. I mean, you see a lot of stuff that normal people shouldn't see on a day-to-day basis. You deal with a lot of stuff. And it's funny because, I get some of the guys will talk to me and they'll be like, oh, you were in the military, you saw some stuff too. And I'm like, yeah, but it's a lot different. Like,
Totally different.
It's completely different when I'm dealing with somebody that is a known enemy, Obviously, that plays a huge factor in dealing with that PTSD and stuff like that. So, with working in the community or just working in general at home in the United States, those are Americans. And a lot of people don't think about that. And you're like, hey, this is real. This is home. Like, we're seeing some bad stuff at home. Some worse stuff often you're probably going to see over in the Middle East. And it's crazy to think about that it still goes on. So I know a lot of these first responders deal with a lot of mental health issues. So that is a big thing that sits near and dear to my heart, because I've lost a good amount of buddies to suicide, and never want to make a temporary solution or a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Exactly. Yeah, that's an outstanding issue that we have.
Yeah.
22 a day, 22
Yeah.
veterans a day.
Yeah, and it goes up every year too, and unfortunately, our systems just don't help it out enough.
Exactly.
Especially down here in Florida, like our VA system. I'm not saying it's bad. Everything could use some work. Our healthcare system across the board could use help. But when you have an influx of people and not enough healthcare providers, that plays a huge role in veterans, especially when we already have a little bit slower return on investment when it comes to dealing with like the VA and stuff like that. So I can see how a lot of that plays a huge factor, and why a lot of these guys, they kind of fall through the cracks. A lot of these older veterans who have been in, or 60, 70 years old are now that they're not super tech savvy, so they're not able to go through and easily set up these appointments, and then they kind of fall through the cracks because nobody else reaches out to them.
100%.
And so that's another hard hitting home issue.
Understood. Let me ask you, why did you join the Army versus, like, say, the Marines?
So funny. I went in and talked to the Marines first. So I was actually in high school when I had talked to the Marines. I was a senior, and I had talked to him. I sat down and talked to him, and he was like, well, what do you want to do in the Marines? And I was like, well, I just want to be infantry. That was all I wanted to do. And he was like, well, we can't guarantee you anything. It depends on how you do in basic training. It's going to depend on what you do. And so I was like, okay, no, I don't want to end up as a cook. Like, I want to be infantry. And so I think that and I thought the military was like that across the board. So that's why I kind of waited. And a buddy of mine that I played football through high school with is a really, really good friend of mine. He's actually one of my groomsmen during my wedding. It was about a year after, almost a year after high school, came up to me and talked to me. I was working as a pizza delivery driver at the time. And he was like, hey, dude, I just joined the Army. Like, you should come talk to him. I was like, you have to choose your job? He's like, yeah, I'm a combat medic. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I went in there and talked to the recruiter, and I think the next week they sent me down to MEPS because I was like, that's probably the easiest contract for that guy. I walked in the door, I was like, hey, this is what I want to do. Oh, you want to be a grunt? Cool, you got to score like over a 34. Yeah, you got this. And so got a 76 on the practice test, and they're like, okay, are you good to go to MEPS next week? I'm like, yeah, man, good to go anywhere. You let me know where I need to be. And so he's like, all right, cool, Wednesday you're going down to MEPS. Went down to MEPS, scored a like 60, 56 or 60 something on the DASVAB, and he comes back and they're like, hey man, so what do you want to do? I was like, infantry. And he's like, we have no slots right now for infantry. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, no, so there's nothing open. You can be a truck driver with airborne. And I was like, no. And he was like, all right. He goes, well, there's no slots open. I was like, all right, cool. Well, I guess call me whenever there's slots open. He was like, well, this is how it works. He was like, you don't have to, unless you don't have to sign anything. Which I'm sure after being a recruiter, like I'm sure that recruiter got his butt chewed afterwards. But I did the same thing. Like if the kid really wanted to do that, I'm not going to force him into another job so I can get a contract.
Right.
No, I want that kid to be happy because if he has a good experience, he's going to go on and tell somebody else, hey, my recruiter was awesome, man. And so my recruiter was just like, hey man, we'll get back to you. I'm sure. He goes, I'll check the system every day. There will be a slot that pops up. And no kidding, a week later, slot pops up, and he's like, hey, we need you to come into the office like right now and sign your contract so it doesn't get taken. And I was like, cool, on the way.
Nice.
So
sweet too.
That's what landed me that.
Do you have what would you say is the best part about being a firefighter?
The best part about being a firefighter? You gotta help people every day. You gotta be a part of something that's bigger than yourself.
That's right.
And the brotherhood. I think for me getting out of the military, the brotherhood was huge for me. Huge for me. And I think again that's what made the Army so easy. Was the men and women that you get to serve alongside are some of the most genuine people. Like I have like a whole list in my phone right now that I could call and be like, hey man, I'm broke down on the side of the road. I know you're in Indiana, but I need it. And he'd be like, all right, I'm on the way, man. It's going to take me a couple days, but I'll be there. And the fire department's very, very, very similar. Very, very similar. And I think for me, the transition from military to fire was one of the best transitions. I mean, the brotherhood is huge in the fire department.
You guys have the union, right? So what's it, the 2980? Is that what it is? Local?
Yep, local 2980. Yeah.
You have a charity with that also, don't you?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what it is.
Gotcha.
But yeah, we have a local charity also.
Yeah. I believe, I forget the name of it, what the charity is, but I know it's when people lose everything in the fire, they provide.
Yeah, even minor things like we just did. There was a guy that actually a couple of the crews on my shift ran. He was over at one of the islands, fell off the back of the boat. His buddy accidentally hit the throttle and ran him over. But luckily, there was a fire chief from another department on scene that made makeshift tourniquets around the guy's legs. It saved his life. 100% saved his life. Like that guy wouldn't have made it.
Would have bled out quick.
But our charity, we helped with him. We showed up to the hospital with his mom and gave him a big T-shirt, and just because he was doing well. And we were just saying, hey man, we hope everything gets better and stuff like that. So that's a lot of cool things the charity gets to do. That's the awesome opportunity.
Great. Listen, Shawn, it's been a great time talking to you. Thanks for all you've done here. Appreciate your service and your bravery. Thanks for stopping by.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, sir. Thank you for affording me the opportunity.